It is Free Talk Live. As always, you're invited to join us, 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. That's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria.
And Nikki.
And I got kind of bored today. I wasn't really bored. I had plenty to do, but I decided to actually do some real show prep today instead of just looking through stuff in the news to see what was interesting. So I ended up going through all of the LSRs in the state of New Hampshire. Now, for those who don't know, this is a legislative service request. It's a bill that has been put forward and is going to get a bill number soon. And there's a long list of these. I don't know exactly how many, but at least a few hundred.
Wow.
And yes, quite a few of them. Not all of them have text of the bill actually available. Some of them do, some of them don't. Like the constitutional amendment that we've been working on for independence doesn't have the actual text available there. But some of them are really disturbing. Some of them are also deeply encouraging. So let's get into some of these. Now, they all are prefaced by 2022, so because that's the year they're going to be voted on and read and all of that. So I'm going to skip over that. But 2007 is going to prohibit state agencies from using facial recognition technology.
I like that one.
I do too.
So far, so good.
Yeah, the biggest surprise here for me is that I didn't recognize any of the names who were on this legislation. And going through this list of LSRs, which stands for, I think, Legislative Service Request, it really made me aware of how many state reps in New Hampshire I actually know. Like, I had a question on a few of these bills, and I just opened up Facebook and was like, hey, I recognize that name. And sure enough, shot them a message like, what's going on here? And a lot of them got back to me. Some of them didn't. Who cares? 2013 would establish criminal penalties for harming or threatening to harm an essential worker. Now, this is a Democrat bill, but I'm confused because isn't harming someone or threatening to harm someone already criminal?
Yeah, are they just trying to make it more criminal? And who is an essential worker? Because a lot of people are essential workers. Like, that would be like grocery store workers. Like, are they just talking about like EMTs and police officers and nurses here? Or are they talking about pretty much everybody?
They're using the executive order, I think it was Executive Order 17 that Sununu made to define what an essential worker is. So yes, it's all of the restaurant employees, the gas station employees, the grocery stores, the healthcare workers. But there are a few Democratic bills in here because this is definitely a Democratic bill. I mean, it tells you which reps sponsored it. These were all Democrats. There are a few in here that were just, we're going to take this thing that's already criminal and make a new law so that it's double criminal. It's very peculiar. I don't know why they would bother.
It doesn't really make any sense, and it kind of seems like a waste of time.
Democrats do love their committees, though. Probably 20% of all of the bills that were proposed by Democrats involved forming one committee or another to research some incomprehensibly niche topic, like we need to study the effects of underwater swamp draining and log recovery. I mention that because there actually is a log recovery bill coming up. 2017 would require a background check prior to any commercial firearm sale.
Oh, no, I don't like that.
No. And here in New Hampshire, all you need in order to go to a gun store and buy a gun is proof of New Hampshire residency.
As it should be.
Yes, that's generally just a New Hampshire ID. And that they don't run that through a database or anything. They just need to make sure that the person they're selling the gun to is a New Hampshire resident.
I think you also can't be a felon, right?
Yes.
But that's like a federal thing.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Even the Democrats won't touch this bill. The only name attached to this bill was one person, the one who drafted the bill and put it forth. So
yeah, that's going nowhere.
Even if it did, I mean, the Senate's going to shoot this down and Sununu is going to veto it. So that's not going to happen, thankfully. 2028 would require an audit of the state police. The text for this one actually is available online, but what surprised me about this is that it was actually brought forward by Republicans, not Democrats. And they don't just want to audit how they're spending money, they want to audit how they're spending their time as well, and what sort of people they're prosecuting and what they're doing as, state police.
I wonder if they're like Republicans or if they're like more libertarian type Republicans running, libertarians running as a Republican.
It's difficult to tell, because there's like 40-something Liberty reps in the State House, and I don't know all of them. I know a fair number of them, but not all of them. 2038, sorry, I skipped one. 2037 turns representative pay into pennies. Now, for those who don't know, they already make like $3 for driving to Concord or something like that, and $250 a year.
Yeah, it's way too much.
Yeah. So this bill would change that to 2 cents a year and 3 cents versus $3. So they just chopped off a bunch of zeros, and I love it because someone actually took the time to run for the State House and make this their issue.
Yeah.
And they're taking what is already just inconsequentially low amounts of money and reducing it to the point where you might as well not even pay these people.
Yeah, and at that point, I mean, they're operating at a loss basically because of all like the gas money and stuff it takes just to be in these positions. I mean,
I think they're operating at a loss anyway because...
Yeah, I mean, $250, that's nothing.
And I'm not sure exactly what that $250 is. I thought their salary was $100 a year, but the text of this was available online, but I had way too much to do to actually go through and carefully read all of these bills when really that's just funny. And I like it, but I don't really care about the details of why they're doing it or versus what it is now. 2038 would repeal the prohibition on entering or remaining on a public way or sidewalk adjacent to a reproductive health care facility. So at the moment, it's illegal to protest at Planned Parenthood, essentially.
Oh, so that's what that's about. They want to make it legal to protest Planned Parenthood?
Yes, there are a ton of bills put forward dealing with an abortion. There are as many dealing with abortion as there are dealing with cannabis.
Well, I don't know if you've seen this, but I keep getting the ads on YouTube, and I actually think I saw one on like a local New Hampshire news station as a commercial about the Sununu abortion ban and how it's going to be like the worst abortion ban in the history of New Hampshire. So I've been hearing all about that on YouTube and even on the TV, so...
I don't know what the current status is of abortion laws in New Hampshire, but there are bills put forward that are going to change it one way or the other if any of them pass. Some of them want to repeal existing law. Some of them want to make it harder for people to get abortions. Some of them want to make it easier. 2046 would repeal the law relative to certain discrimination in public workplaces and education. But the bill wasn't available, so I don't know what type of discrimination it wants to allow. I imagine it's going to be dealing with vaccine mandates and discrimination against the unvaccinated, but there are already several bills within the list of LSRs that deal with exactly that topic. So it's difficult to say. 2056 would reduce the rate of the meals and room tax, which is the only actual sales tax in New Hampshire, and it got reduced last year from 9% to 8.5%. So they want to reduce it again, and this time they want to increase the revenue sharing with municipalities in order to reduce property taxes. Of course, that's not the way it works. If the state just starts giving like the city of Keene money, the city of Keene isn't going to lower its property taxes. It's just going to suddenly have more money.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're going to find a way to spend it. 2061 is a constitutional amendment relating to reproductive medical decisions, providing that the state shall not infringe or unduly inconvenience the right of reproductive medical decisions. Like I said, a lot of these deal with abortion, and this is one of these. This is an amendment that I'm generally okay with, except that it doesn't go far enough. It should say that the state shall not infringe or unduly inconvenience the right of medical decisions.
Period.
All medical, But of course, they didn't do that, probably because that would make it more difficult to pass. 2065 was a curious one, and I had to message one of the reps who sponsored it to find out exactly what they were talking about. Reducing the penalty for sex work within one's own home. The new penalty would be $10 for a first offense and $50 for a second offense. It didn't say anything about a third offense or anything like that, but it's just curious. There's lots of these coming up, some of them really disturbing. It's Free Talk Live.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. As always, you're invited to join us, 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria.
And Nikki.
And we are currently suspended from YouTube. Again, I think it was for medical misinformation, but I don't really remember the specifics at this point, and it doesn't really matter to me. We're suspended, I think, for 2 weeks, and the strike will come off sometime in March or some... I don't know, and I don't really care, because you should be watching us on our Odyssey channel at video.freetalklive.com, where we don't have to put up with this nonsense, where our viewers don't know if we're going to be there from day to day. Because there's, as someone pointed out on the backup YouTube channel that we're streaming to, there's no way for us to notify subscribers on YouTube that we've been suspended because we've been suspended and can't make a video or do one of their stupid social media posts about how we've been suspended. So just get away from it. Just stop watching us there, and we can all forget that the YouTube thing ever happened. Video.freetalklive.com. That's where you can find us, and you don't have to worry about whether or not we're actually going to be streaming on a day-to-day basis, because we'll always be streaming there. Now, we're talking about New Hampshire legislative service requests that have been put in. Now, these are bills that various representatives, there's like 400 and something state representatives, have put forward. And a lot of them are redundant. A lot of them deal with cannabis. A lot of them deal with abortion. And a lot of them deal with COVID-19. Those are the primary things that all of these bills deal with. So the most recent one was 2065, which reduces the penalty of getting caught as a sex worker to $10 for a first offense and $50 for a second offense. And when the state rep who sponsored this got back to me, there was also something in there about having safe sex, further reducing the fines. I don't know. I just wanted a general idea of what they were reducing the penalty to. So, I mean, it's a bill, so it's got some complexities to it. Another CACR, which is a constitutional amendment, would provide that the Attorney General be elected by a majority vote of the members of the Senate and the House of Representatives, rather than being appointed by the governor, which is, I think, it doesn't say rather than be appointed by the governor, but I think that's how it happens right now. I'm not entirely sure. 2083 basically gives medical professionals the right to deny abortion services. Strangely, it limits this to just abortions instead of giving medical professionals the right to deny any services. Now, what I was really hoping for as I looked through all of these was I was hoping to find some sort of obvious hypocrisy of someone putting forward a bill saying doctors should be able to deny abortion services, but also sponsoring a bill saying doctors shouldn't be able to deny care to the unvaccinated, because doctors can either make those decisions or they can't. But sadly, there were no such, obvious examples of hypocrisy.
I remember when I was in nursing school, somebody asked the topic of what if we don't agree with homosexuality, or what if we don't agree with abortion? Things like that came up. And my nursing professor just straight up was like, if you can't put that behind you and give proper medical care to somebody and let them have their right to choose, then you picked the wrong profession.
I've seen that a lot from posts on social media of people saying, that's how their professors responded, saying what if I don't agree and I don't want to give this trans person treatment? And the instructor was like, well, then find a different career.
Yeah.
And I generally think that's how doctors should approach it because of the Hippocratic Oath and all of that. I don't want my doctor to be swayed by their personal feelings on things.
Yeah, and it's you don't have to agree with it and you don't have to understand it, but to mistreat somebody because they're trans or because they're gay or because they had an abortion or whatever else their medical history might hold is just, you should not work in healthcare.
Absolutely. 2088 is where it gets horrifying. It allows the biological father of an unborn child to petition the court for an injunction prohibiting the biological mother from having an abortion. Now, this basically means that if a guy has unprotected sex, the two guys who put forward this legislation, because there were only two sponsors and both of them surprisingly were men, they honestly believe that not wearing protection while having sex gives them the right to claim ownership of a woman's body for the next 9 months of her life. I don't know any other way of looking at this this draconian legislation.
It's disgusting.
And they want to... I can't imagine being one of these biological fathers trying to petition the court saying, hey, no, you need to make her do this. Her body isn't hers. It belongs to the court. Now exercise that authority.
I've actually had somebody argue in favor of that with me before. I guess his partner had an abortion and he was just so upset by it. And it's okay, you can be upset by it, but it's her body and not yours. Like, she's the one who's going to have to carry this child for 9 months and give birth to it, and you can dip out at any time. You might have to pay child support or something, but like, she essentially, you know, has to go through all of this. I mean,
it's definitely not an even playing field.
No.
And to no surprise, most of the bills that were put forward that would restrict abortion in some way were almost entirely dominated by male co-sponsors.
Yep, they usually are.
Yeah, and all of the ones that went the other way were dominated almost entirely by female co-sponsors. There was some crossover, like you see a 70-year-old Republican woman who's on one of these bills.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, big surprise there, right? So another one, 2093, I don't even know what an officer of register of probates is.
A probation officer?
I don't.
Is that?
I don't
No?
think so. But I
don't know what else
honestly
that would
don't
mean.
know. It's an elected position. I see it here on the ballot in Keene for the officer of probates, or the officer of register of probates. I don't know what that is. But that's okay, because I never know anyone running for it, so I'm not going to vote for it. But this constitutional amendment would eliminate the entire position entirely.
Perfect.
That's exactly my response. I was like, I don't even know what they are.
Don't care.
Nope. It's just a government position, and this bill gets rid of it.
I'm going
Let's do it.
to put forward a bill, just eliminate all government positions.
Well, that would be great. But I will take starting with one government position.
I'll take it.
And maybe next time we can have more than one. 2101 would prohibit unlawful discrimination in public and non-public schools. Again, a Democrat bill that is taking something that's already unlawful and making it prohibited as well.
It's like, it seems like it's one of those things where like they just change a few words, and you know, the change of language just makes it a completely different thing.
2111, relative to the number of rounds allowed for hunting regardless of firearm capacity. It sounds silly, but the text of this bill was actually available. So I read it, and what it actually does is declare that semi-automatic weapons are usable for hunting game.
Okay.
And at present, presumably, you can't have X number of rounds in a semi-automatic weapon because it's not usable for hunting game. So having this legislation would allow you to have more ammunition in your semi-automatic weapon and have legal binding justification for carrying it around with you.
Cool.
So 2115 is another constitutional amendment that would provide that all adults have the right to possess, use, and cultivate cannabis, subject to regulation by the legislature. There's another constitutional amendment dealing with cannabis, and the reason that this is necessary is because Sununu has said he's going to veto any cannabis legalization that comes before him. But if it's a constitutional amendment, he can't veto it.
Ah.
So that's why there's not one, but two, maybe more, I don't recall exactly, constitutional amendments that would allow people to have cannabis. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
If you want to bring more liberty into your community, there's something you should see. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, break through. It's true. It's truly something new. If you'd like to see real prosperity, start your own currency, boost the economy. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, its impact's hard to overstate, results you can appreciate. If you're tired of relying on the state, want to make your own community great, homelessness and hunger to eliminate, let the wealth accumulate. Don't wait for the growth rate to accelerate. Go to intercoin.org and get the coins for yourself.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The United States and China say they will accelerate action together to tackle climate change this decade. The two countries have issued a surprise joint statement at COP26 in Glasgow. It pledges joint action to protect the environment and implement the goals agreed in the Paris Climate Change Accords 6 years ago. Hailing the announcement, US climate change czar John Kerry.
The effort to reduce emissions by 45% in this decade is a tall order, and it will require all of our nations coming together in order to achieve it. This declaration makes a statement about that effort to cooperate, about the imperative to cooperate.
The deal comes just days before a possible virtual summit between President Biden and President Xi Jinping, with no shortage of tensions to try and alleviate in their bilateral relationship. In other news, Belarusian opposition leaders are calling on the EU to impose fresh sanctions on President Alexander Lukashenko, accusing him of fueling a migrant crisis along the border with Poland. Thousands of people from the Middle East brought to Belarus are now seeking to cross the border into Poland, which is an EU member state. Joe Barnes is Brussels correspondent for the Daily Telegraph.
The EU is trying to send all of its resources to Poland. Europol, which is the European Union's police kind of force, Frontex, its border agency. The EU are working on further sanctions at the moment that they can slap the Belarusian regime with, but previous sanctions haven't worked and it's only escalated the crisis.
A European Union court has upheld a $2.8 billion fine levied against Google. The action was brought by antitrust authorities in Brussels. Google can challenge the ruling at the European Court of Justice. The trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, the teenager accused of shooting dead 2 demonstrators at a Black Lives Matter protest in Wisconsin last year, saw dramatic scenes on Wednesday. The accused gunman sobbed as he described the moments that led to the shooting. The judge in the case furiously criticised prosecutors, accusing them of deliberately flouting his orders on testimony in the case. The defence wants a mistrial, but for now the case continues. The US Department of Justice is suing Uber for charging waiting time fees to disabled passengers. From FSN's bureau in Silicon Valley, Ira Spitzer reports.
The federal lawsuit alleges that Uber's practice of charging customers 2 minutes after a driver arrives violates the rights of disabled passengers who may need more time to get into the vehicle. The Justice Department is asking the court to order Uber to modify its wait fee policy, as well as pay monetary damages. Previously, the ride-sharing firm reached a 2018 settlement with New York City over its ability to accommodate riders with wheelchairs. Ira Spitzer, San Francisco.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talking about the ups and downs being presented in New Hampshire. Because the Free State Project, the Liberty Movement, we haven't won the battle. We've seen a lot of successes, and we're seeing more successes right now than we've ever seen at any point. But a lot of people, they hear some of these bills and they think, oh, the Free State Project is clearly a failure. Well, no, these things take time. And this is one of the issues I have with people is I limited to just Facebook, so I spend some time, checking out the FSP groups and all of that. And they refrain from people that, oh my goodness, if you guys secede, as in secede from the United States, I'll totally move to New Hampshire. And I kind of don't want people like that to come here. I want people to come here who are actually willing to fight for liberty because they believe in it. If they're not willing to put in any work to achieve a thing, I kind of have a hard time believing they want to actually achieve that thing.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
So the fight is still ongoing, and it's going well, but there are some hiccups, right? 2121 would repeal the prohibition on conversion therapy for minors.
For minors?
Yes,
oh my God.
I missed that detail as well. I guess it makes sense now I think about it, that conversion therapy for adults is still legal, but this is worse than that. This is a bill that I'm going to have to actually attend the hearing for, and as a trans person, speak out against conversion therapy for minors, because I can't imagine what monsters would support this. It gets a little more stupid, though. 2127 would add sexual reassignment to the definition of child abuse. I've emailed this rep just saying, hey, I think you and I should talk because I think I can clear up some of the misconceptions you may have about what it means to be trans. And to my surprise, within just a few minutes, the state rep emailed me back.
Oh, wow.
Saying, it doesn't apply to you. It only applies to minors. Oh, well, that changes everything, doesn't it? What kind of sociopath has that as their response? What do you care about this law? It doesn't affect you. Dude, if you were writing a law to round up and kill all the black people, I would email you and be like, hey, you can't do this. That's horrible. And if your response was, what do you care? It doesn't affect you personally. You're a sociopath, dude. I'm trying to be cordial with this guy, right? So I didn't respond, oh my God, you're a sociopath. Please don't ever email me back again. Instead, I was like, well, no, I realize that it doesn't affect me, but I want you to understand that the decision about whether or not to transition should be between a child, their parents, and their doctors, in the same way as whether or not you want to get vaccinated should be an individual choice between your doctor and you. The government shouldn't get involved in telling you whether or not it's in your best interest to get vaccinated. And similarly, they shouldn't get involved telling you whether or not it's in your best interest to let your child transition. No response from that yet. So hopefully, but still absolutely bizarre that anyone would suggest that.
Yikes.
Every bill in New Hampshire gets a hearing. And this one will get a hearing. I don't know if I actually want to even bother to go to this one because it's stupid, but it's also not likely to pass. And I'm not going to, reach this guy on the issue itself. I think on the issue of conversion therapy, it's worth doing because I could actually reach the people who are advocates of this. Like, hey, look, I've been through this crap. You don't do this to human beings. So 2129, relating to the use, sale, or cultivation of cannabis, providing that the state shall make no law prohibiting the use, sale, or cultivation of cannabis for persons over 18 years of age. I like that one. The other one allowed it to be regulated by Congress. This one, though, is not a constitutional amendment, which means this one could be vetoed if it ever reached Sununu's desk. It is my favorite as far as wording goes, but it's my least favorite because it's also least likely to be successful. 2131 is one of my favorites, relative to the recovery of submerged logs. As in underwater logs. So imagine being a state rep and this being your issue. This is your issue of choice. This is what you're doing with your life, is writing laws about how to recover underwater logs. It only has one sponsor available. There's no text available for it yet, but it sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, you can imagine what the text would be.
I have to read this thing, man. Someone took time out of their day, out of their life, to become a state representative so they could write a law about how to recover underwater logs. And it's got to be great.
This specific thing happened to them, and that's why they're like, yeah, no, I got to write a law for this. This could never happen to me ever again.
I certainly hope that's the case. 2142, including state medical facilities in the statute providing medical freedom in immunizations. I would like to see this one passed because if any employee doesn't want to get vaccinated, I think that's their right. But
absolutely,
the state medical facilities, on the other hand, I don't know how they're not already included within the prohibition on vaccine mandates that the state of New Hampshire already has in place. Because there are state medical facilities. I think all of them in New Hampshire are state medical facilities. So why doesn't that law apply to them already? Evidently, it doesn't. 2149 relates to recording interactions with public officials. No text is available, so it's not clear whether someone is trying to make it obviously legal to record public officials or whether to make it illegal. However, it has Max Abramson and Kevin Craig as sponsors. And Kevin Craig, I sort of know. Max Abramson is friends with me on Facebook. I know him fairly well. He's a Liberty rep. So I imagine it's just enshrining in law the right to record public officials. But
yeah,
without seeing the text, I'm just assuming that. 2160 relates to the governor's power to declare a state of emergency. Again, no text available, but given everything that's happened and this being the state of New Hampshire, I suspect they're trying to make it so that the Congress has to declare a state of emergency. Because when you think about it, it's kind of stupid that that the executive branch can declare a state of emergency that gives the executive branch unlimited amounts of power, essentially.
Yeah, there's just no checks there.
There's another one that would limit the authority for city council bylaws and ordinances, and I think we all know why this is. New Hampshire is a home rule state, which means that cities and towns in New Hampshire can only do what the state legislative branch allows them to do in their town and city charters. And I suspect they're going to restrict face coverings and vaccine requirements from the city charters. I don't know, because again, no text is available. But this being New Hampshire and that bill being introduced by Republicans, I think that's a fair assumption. 2184 is a fun one. It establishes a commission brought to you by Democrats because they I'm not kidding, they love their committees.
The Committee for Committees?
Yes. To study revenue alternatives to the road toll for electric-powered and hybrid vehicles for the funding of improvements to the state's highways and bridges and their resulting improvements to the environment. Now, I included that one because it just makes me ask, what is this person doing with their life? This is what gets them up in the morning, is writing legislation to establish commissions about electric-powered vehicles and toll bridges. That's sad.
And that's the thing, too. Like, there's so many more important issues to spend your time, worried about, and that's what this person put forward.
Well, I have one of the most urgent and pressing and important issues coming to you from 2227. If passed, it would urge the United Kingdom to return the Parthenon, or Elgin marbles, to Greece.
What?
Yes.
It doesn't even have anything to do with the United States, let alone, never mind New Hampshire. What?
Two people sponsored this nonsense. So it's not just one random lunatic going.
Is it a joke?
I hope so. I mean, yes, obviously it's a joke. The whole thing's a joke. But are they serious? Are they
Yeah, do they know that it's a joke?
I just imagine these two state reps who can't sleep at night because they're so worried about the Elgin marbles not being returned to Greece, and the United Kingdom is just not giving them back, and it's driving them crazy. So they have to run for state rep and file this bill that would urge the UK to do it. Man, politics is fun, and in New Hampshire, you never know what to expect. I did not expect to see anything about the Parthenon in the LSRs today. There's more coming up, though. It's Free Talk Live.
If you're looking for work, you know what I mean by elevator speech. It's the short version, saying just enough to make the listener want to listen more. Even if you're not a job seeker, effective communication skills have never been more important, with money and attention so scarce now. So to cut through the clutter, choose every single word as though it was the last word the person you're speaking to will hear. Otherwise, it might be. Instead of saying, due to the fact that, say, because. And avoid mispronunciations. Say jewelry, not jewelry, which could offend. Undoubtedly, you don't want to say undoubtedly. And whatever you do, never use a preposition to end a sentence with. Just kidding. For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
Where did you get this right to tell me what I can do in my business? Where do you get the right?
I support private property.
No, you don't.
You're a liar. You don't understand
I'm a liar?
You're either a liar or you don't understand what private property is. One or the other.
Your house is private property.
Yeah, my business is too.
You open up a business
it
to
is
the public. Now
open
it's
to
not
the public.
As far as I'm concerned.
Well,
That's just an
you
opinion.
can redefine property if that's what you want to do. Where do you get the right to tell me what I can do in my business?
My lungs. So when they pass a law.
The government,
He has lungs, sir.
The law. You just pointed it out.
I'm being silly.
The law.
You're being a Nazi.
You're absolutely right. The law is what gives you the right. The law is a bunch of words written on paper by liars and thieves, and you're willing to use that force that they have to reach your own ends. When you're willing to do that, then anybody can do anything to you.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free speech is protected on the internet, right? Not always. Government agencies try to limit free speech and commerce on the net. Luckily, when they do, the Institute for Justice is there to defend your First Amendment right to free speech. IJ helped set the first federal precedent for internet free speech in 1999, and ever since has worked to prevent unconstitutional roadblocks in cyberspace. Visit our website today at ij.org.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160 if you'd like to weigh in. Your calls and thoughts are welcome. That's 603-283-6160. And the BitBox is a 100% open source wallet, hardware wallet, that mitigates a lot of the problems that other hardware wallets sometimes have, and that's why we're giving one away. All you have to do is subscribe to our Odyssey channel at video.freetalklive.com, and then toot a screenshot of your subscription to me on our social media server, which you can find at social.freetalklive.com. We'll be choosing a winner at random on an upcoming unannounced episode of Free Talk Live using some methodology that we haven't even determined yet. We don't know how we're going to select it at random, but it will be random and it will be live streamed, so you'll know it's fair. If you don't want to participate in the giveaway, though, just go to box.freetalklive.com. You can buy one there. Use code FTL for a 5% discount, because these are kind of pricey. It's $150 for one of these hardware wallets, but if you have more than $150 worth of cryptocurrency, it's better kept in cold storage, like a hardware wallet. So that's box.freetalklive.com. Going over some of these insane bills proposed by insane people in the New Hampshire House of Representatives. We're not going to top the one that urges the United Kingdom to return the Parthenon marbles to Greece, just so people know. That's the height of insanity. I thought when I was reading through this that the one about, how to recover submerged logs was going to be the craziest thing I read today. And then I saw that and my eyes just glazed over and I went, that's either brilliant, because that's the kind of thing I would do if I was if I was a representative. Let's make the most useless bill possible.
Just waste everybody's time.
Yeah, and waste people's time and money, because Dave Ridley calculates that it costs about $2,000 for a bill to have a hearing in the state of New Hampshire, and every single bill has to have a hearing. So that's $2,000 for this nonsense. And as someone who just cost the city of Keene $12,000, I approve wholeheartedly. Speaking of things I did, though, 2228, I suspect I had a hand in its creation. It would require certain voters to declare a party affiliation prior to a state primary election and require candidates to be members of political parties for a certain amount of time prior to an election in which candidates seek office. Now, the reason I think this is related to me is because there was a very inaccurate and incorrect rumor going around that I joined the Republicans like the day I filed to run for sheriff. Like, I saw the Republicans didn't file anyone, so I switched my registration. In actuality, I had been registered as a Republican for like 18 months at that point. But for whatever reason, the rumor spread that she just registered to run as the Republican sheriff. And so they want to do something to prevent that from happening again, but that didn't even happen the first time. I suspect that's the reason for it, because I've never seen any other legislation proposed requiring people to be a party member for X amount of time before they can run for office. So who knows? 2243 is my favorite. It's another constitutional amendment providing that the state peaceably declares independence from the United States and proceeds as a sovereign nation. And I smile every time I say that. 2251, another constitutional amendment, significantly more stupid. It provides that all references to person in the New Hampshire Constitution be gender neutral. And I get it, but I don't get why anyone would waste their time on it.
Wait, can you read that again? What?
It would take all references of like man or thing like that and use a gender neutral term, like person, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I get why that's important to some people, but it's silly that you have to have a constitutional amendment in order to do that in the first place. It's like, we all kind of know what they meant, so just write it how you want and it'll be fine. But that's not enough for some people. 2304 is a problem. I don't see it passing, but it basically would make cop blocking illegal. It is relative to impeding, provoking, or harassing law enforcement officers. So if an officer is doing something and you come within 30 feet of them, that's a Class A misdemeanor.
Is there one about police officers harassing innocent people?
Well, you would hope so, but no, of course not. So I don't think that has much of a chance of passing in New Hampshire, but you never know. 2370 is brought to us by Mark Warden of Porcupine Real Estate. I didn't even realize he was a state representative until I went through this list. It would prohibit surveillance by the state on public ways or sidewalks. So the state can't have any cameras on sidewalks or any of that nonsense. And I don't think they do at the moment. But I like the idea of saying, hey, government, yeah, you just can't do that.
In Massachusetts, they have them everywhere. All over the Mass Pike, you can see the cameras. It's super creepy.
It is creepy. And you can't confront those accusers. I know that red light cameras are illegal in New Hampshire. So this would just sort of be an extension of that. I mean, that's why you don't ever see any.
Yeah, I never really noticed.
2375 would prohibit law enforcement from encrypting public frequencies. Now, this seems kind of pointless since a lot of them use easily decrypted frequencies anyway. Like Keene PD's is technically encrypted, but it's very easy to get around that. But sure, let's do it. 2398 is a confusing one. It would permit voluntary donations to municipalities or the state to fund certain projects or to reduce taxation. So this is something that the whole reason the independence movement really got kickstarted was Dave Ridley called the show wanting someone to pay $2,000 to get this secession bill read in the House of Representatives. And, we're like, okay, we're in for it. Let's do it. And what we learned very quickly was that there actually isn't a mechanism for you to voluntarily give the government money. And that seems weird to me because
they love it when you give them money.
Yeah. But I also realized the reason there is no such mechanism in place is because no one in their right mind would just say, hey, government, here's $4,000. You go spend that however you want. So, of course, there's no such mechanism in place because no one wants to give the government money. This bill would allow that to happen. I still don't want people giving the government money, even if it's voluntary, because the government can use that money to do very evil things, but
it's better than them stealing it.
It is better than them stealing it. So I appreciate the law, and I don't know how to feel about it, but that's where it's at. 2429, relative to state recognition of biological sex. There's no text on this one, but it's brought forward by 4 Republicans who seem likely to be TERFs. That's trans exclusionary radical feminists. So I've got better things to do than email them like, what even is this nonsense? 2475, relative to money, coin, or currency, which may be forfeited in connection with a drug offense. Mike Sylvia brought this one on, and he's leading the charge for New Hampshire independence in the State House. So I'm curious what this one would actually say. 2618, I'm excited about decriminalizing the possession and use of psilocybin mushrooms.
Nice.
The bill is actually bipartisan. Both Republicans and Democrats have co-sponsored it. But I suspect that the 2 Republican reps who did are actually, Liberty reps.
Yeah.
But
see, look at mushrooms bringing people together, uniting our state.
It would be great to see this passed. 2692 would urge the United States Congress to remove the exception from the 13th Amendment that allows slavery as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. I'd be happy to see this pass, but it wouldn't actually do anything. Just like urging the United Kingdom to give back the Parthenon to Greece wouldn't actually do anything. 2783, relative to digital assets and digital securities. Mark Warden, again of Porcupine Real Estate, and Jason Osborne are sponsors of this bill. So it's related to cryptocurrencies, and it's sponsored by 2 very well-known Liberty Movement members. I'm curious to see what it says. 2786 really confused me. Relative to the taking of gray squirrels. There are 6 sponsors to whatever this insane bill has to say. They got 6 people to sponsor a bill about the taking of gray squirrels. But the fact that they got 6 sponsors wasn't really the reason that I brought this one in. It was because I had to read it repeatedly, because every time I did, I thought they were saying gay squirrels. And they're
turning the squirrels gay.
I was so confused about how they were figuring out which squirrels were gay and which ones weren't, and why they were only taking the gay ones, until I went, oh my God, that's gray squirrels. I guess it kind of does get crazy. One state rep wants to express the appreciation of the General Court to Nicole Knox Murphy for her song My 603. Expressing the what? Other stupid stuff. 2917 recognizes the second Thursday in October as Children's Environmental Health Day.
Oh my God.
Yeah, all of there were many of these. That one was just the most obscure. So that's it. There's more coming up, including a second grader who got suspended 38 times for not wearing a mask from school. And the New Hampshire Executive Council has reversed course, and they're accepting the government's blood money. It's Free Talk Live.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The United States and China say they will accelerate action together to tackle climate change this decade. The two countries have issued a surprise joint statement at COP26 in Glasgow. It pledges joint action to protect the environment and implement the goals agreed in the Paris Climate Change Accords 6 years ago. Hailing the announcement, U.S. climate change czar John Kerry.
The effort to reduce emissions by 45% in this decade is a tall order, and it will require all of our nations coming together in order to achieve it. This declaration makes a statement about that effort to cooperate, about the imperative to cooperate.
The deal comes just days before a possible virtual summit between President Biden and President Xi Jinping, with no shortage of tensions to try and alleviate in their bilateral relationship. In other news, Belarusian opposition leaders are calling on the EU to impose fresh sanctions on President Alexander Lukashenko, accusing him of fueling a migrant crisis along the border with Poland. Thousands of people from the Middle East brought to Belarus are now seeking to cross the border into Poland, which is an EU member state. Joe Barnes is Brussels correspondent for the Daily Telegraph.
The EU is trying to send all of its resources to Poland. Europol, which is the European Union's police kind of force, Frontex, its border agency. The EU are working on further sanctions at the moment that they could slap the Belarusian regime with, but previous sanctions haven't worked and it's only escalated the crisis.
A European Union court has upheld a $2.8 billion fine levied against Google. The action was brought by antitrust authorities in Brussels. Google can challenge the ruling at the European Court of Justice. The trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, the teenager accused of shooting dead two demonstrators at a Black Lives Matter protest in Wisconsin last year, saw dramatic scenes on Wednesday. The accused gunman sobbed as he described the moments that led to the shooting. The judge in the case furiously criticised prosecutors, accusing them of deliberately flouting his orders on testimony in the case. The defence wants a mistrial, but for now the case continues. The US Department of Justice is suing Uber for charging waiting time fees to disabled passengers. From FSN's bureau in Silicon Valley, Ira Spitzer reports.
The federal lawsuit alleges that Uber's practice of charging customers 2 minutes after a driver arrives violates the rights of disabled passengers who may need more time to get into the vehicle. The Justice Department is asking the court to order Uber to modify its wait fee policy, as well as pay monetary damages. Previously, the ride-sharing firm reached a 2018 settlement with New York City over its ability to accommodate riders with wheelchairs. Ira Spitzer, San Francisco.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking today at the growing presence of Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, in a big political debate here in Washington. Over the last 3 weeks, she has written to Democratic leaders in Congress, urging them to pass provisions for 12 weeks of paid family and medical leave for new parents in the United States. She has also cold-called Republican senators, pressing them on the issue and catching them by surprise when they answer the phone to hear her voice on the other end of the line. And yesterday she appeared at the New York Times Deal Book Summit to campaign over paid parental leave.
I've been gone from the U.S. for a really long time, and to come back and to see that the U.S. is one of only 6 countries in the entire world that doesn't offer any form of national paid leave. I guess my approach was the same as it's been since I was really young. When I was 11 and I saw something that was wrong on TV, I put pen to paper and wrote a letter about it. So on this, I said, well, let me write a letter and let me pick up the phone and make some calls and see if I can help. It's just, to me, it seems like a really logical and obvious thing to do, and I'm happy that I'm able to support it.
All of this comes after unnamed friends and associates told reporters that the Duchess covets a political career and is considering a run for office. She'll be in Washington in a few weeks to attend a dinner for women lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Some of them may be wondering if she has any plans to try and join their number. The main news again. The United States and China say they'll accelerate action together to tackle climate change. Belarusian opposition leaders are calling on the EU to impose fresh sanctions on President Alexander Lukashenko, accusing him of fueling a migrant crisis on the border with Poland. And the US Department of Justice is suing Uber for charging waiting time fees to disabled passengers. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
A harrowing situation on Broad Street came to its conclusion Thursday night as a group of hostages were freed from local comedy club The Laugh Up Lounge after a tense 7-minute stand-up set.
Every once in a while, he'd grab his notebook, and I'd think maybe this is it. Maybe he's going to let us go. But he just kept talking.
Additionally, The Onion recovered this video footage from the cell phone of one of the many captives.
Please, if someone sees this, help us. Please help us.
Yeah, micromanagement. You guys are totally going to wang it out.
Oh my God. Oh my God, no.
Cool.
I'm not a religious person, but at one point I said the Lord's Prayer, and it actually had a calming effect. Like Jesus was standing next to me and said, "You're going to get through this."
I mean, sometimes you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, don't take life for granted because you just never know when something like this could happen. So,
this is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, where you can call in, take control of the airwaves, and talk about whatever is important to you. The number to do that is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria.
And Nikki.
And we're going to get into the story about the second grader who has been suspended 38 different times for not wearing a mask. But I want to talk about the Travis Scott thing, because I've been ignoring it. I just sort of been waiting and seeing what develops before I, wade in. But eventually the rock and metal fans out there just became so gratingly obnoxious that I had to stop waiting and weigh in. Now, for those who don't know, there was an Astroworld Festival in Houston, I think, last Saturday.
Yeah, something like that.
And 8 people tragically died, and several dozen went to the hospitals. It was a tragedy, and all I'm seeing from rock and metal fans, a normal person is like, oh my God, that's horrible. But rock and metal fans are, for whatever reason, taking the opportunity to, this doesn't happen at metal shows. We know the number one rule is if someone falls, you get back up. Look, you idiots, we're not talking about mosh pits here. This isn't a mosh pit where it's relatively controlled and you have a clearly defined wall of people. And yes, if someone falls, you pick them up. This is a crowd crunch. This happened as soon as Travis Scott came on. And for those who don't know what a crowd crunch is, because I've been to a ton of rock and metal shows, but I had never experienced one of these until Korn came on at Louder Than Life. And evidently, the peak attendance at Louder Than Life was 160,000 people this year. I didn't know that. I was estimating like 50,000. It was actually 3 times as many people as I thought. So probably for Korn, it was 100,000 people there that night. But I had never experienced festival seating or a crowd crunch of this capacity. And, everyone's just steadily inching forward, but you're sort of aware of personal space at this point. There's not much personal space, but you're trying not to touch the people in front of you. The people behind you are trying not to touch you. And then the band comes on, and all of that goes away. And suddenly all 50,000 people behind you rush as close to the stage as they can. And of course, they can't get that close because there's already 20, 30,000 people there. So imagine being in the middle of this crowd with 20,000 people in front of you and 50,000 people behind you. And that 50,000 people are pushing you forward into the 20,000 people in front of you. It squeezes you to the point where you literally cannot breathe. And it's not pleasant. And I've experienced one of these, and I will never experience another one. There is no band on this earth that I want to see badly enough to give up my ability to breathe.
And I think the biggest thing that have to take into account with stuff like that is the amount of people in attendance in these concerts and stuff. Because like you said, you've never been to a festival with over 100,000 people before, right?
Yeah, I'd never been. No,
I know. I
definitely
haven't. So I think like for a crowd crush to be that intense, you really need like thousands and thousands of people. So that's probably why a lot of people that listen to metal music and rock music, they're like, well, this doesn't happen. Well, you probably just haven't been to a festival. I don't know how many were in attendance at the Travis Scott festival, but I'm assuming probably a lot.
I suspect it wasn't 150,000. But I suspect
probably
even
a lot.
100,000, even 50,000, it doesn't matter. If
Even 20,000. I mean, like, you know, it's a lot of people in that it's just the natural thing. Like, you get excited, the show comes on, people want to get closer. So you inching, like, the people in the back inching forward a little bit doesn't seem like a lot, but to the people in the front, when there's thousands of people inching forward, squishing you into each other, squishing you into the stage, I mean, that's a big deal.
It is, and it's a terrifying experience. And I have to say, having experienced one of these things, like I said, I had never been to festival seating, so I was wearing flip-flops. I realize now that was a poor decision, but I had never experienced a crowd crunch. And I've seen some pretty hardcore bands play before without ever experiencing anything like this. If someone in front of me had gone down, dude, there would have been nothing I could have done to help them or avoid. I would have had two choices. I could either go down with them, or I could step on them, because there was no doing anything else when you have 30, 40,000 people pushing at you.
Man, that sucks.
Yeah, so that's what happened here. This wasn't a mosh pit where someone fell and got trampled on. This was a crowd crunch where even the most well-intentioned metal-loving fan could not have done anything about it, because you can't just be like, hey, 40,000 people behind me, please stop pushing, someone's down. It doesn't work that way. They're not going to hear you. They're not going to care, because the crowd has its own hive mind and it's pushing forward, and there's nothing you can do about it except either go forward, go down, or do the crazy thing like I did and push your way out of it. But I think that may have actually been the path of least resistance, right? Everyone wants to come toward the stage except me. I want to go as far away from it as I can, and that creates room for more people to come forward. So they wanted me out of there, right? So it's absolutely frustrating to me to see people, you know, playing these clips of, oh, what's this time Linkin Park stopped the show to help this fan, or Rage Against the Machine helped this fan who got her top ripped off.
Apples and oranges.
Yeah. You're just demonstrating, because that would have been me a year ago. Well, I probably wouldn't have weighed in on it a year ago. But before experiencing an actual crowd crunch, I would have been like, this is silly. Why didn't people pick them up?
I'm going to be honest. We talked about this on the show on Sunday, and I literally said, this doesn't happen at metal shows. But I hear you. I get what you're saying now. I just hadn't experienced it.
Yeah.
But now when you put it that way, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
I've only experienced it that once, and it was such a terrible experience that never again.
But
like,
and you
even
know,
for Metallica, which if I had known that they were going to be playing the entirety of the Black Album that night, because that was the first metal album I ever heard. It was what got me into the rock scene. If I had known they were going to be playing that entire album, I may have been willing to deal with it, but no, I still wouldn't have.
Yeah. And also, now I'm remembering, I think what I was speaking to when I said that this doesn't happen at metal shows was the alleged crazy person running around stabbing people with needles filled with mysterious drugs. I think that's what I was speaking to, which I still stand to my statement that does not happen at metal shows, or it probably hasn't yet.
I agree with you on that one. I can't think of anything like that happening at metal shows. There's just too much etiquette around metal.
And you know what? Like, a lot of subgenres of metal music is very straight edge. I've noticed. Like, some of the subgenres of metal music, like some of the shows I've went to, people are like super straight edge, like no drugs, no alcohol.
Oh.
So
that's no fun.
Yeah, no, that is no fun, but
I have never been to a metal or rock concert where people were getting injected against their will. I've been to them where people were injecting stuff of their own volition, and I was just like, okay, well, I'm getting away from you now, but I've never experienced anything like that. The most comparable thing I could think of was when Butcher Babies played at Louder Than Life, and people were already crowd surfing like crazy, and the singer was like, hey, let's get some more crowd surfers going on, and it was another one of those situations where you could extract yourself from the situation or just deal with the large numbers of people passing by. And look, there really has to be, out of all of the metal rules and rock rules and etiquette and all that, why isn't there one that says if you're 6'3" and weigh 230 pounds, you don't get to crowd surf? Because some of these people, and I was right there at the front of the stage because I had just seen Butcher Babies a few days before, and they were really animated. I wanted to see them again, so I was right there. So people were just passing directly overhead, and some of these people were, dude, you have no business crowd surfing. I then learned that a friend of mine had gotten a concussion at a concert.
Oh, gosh.
Years before from exactly this scenario. Someone way too big to be crowd surfing was crowd surfing. But despite having 160,000 people there were no reported deaths, as far as I'm aware, at Louder Than Life. No one got crushed to death by, this massive mob of people. And I suspect the reason for that is that they did allow crowd surfing. Because in these things, you can either go down or go forward.
Or go up.
Yes. And that's what people say. I want to go up. So you got up there and you're above the crowd and you can finally breathe again. And what do? They keep pushing you forward until security catches you and they escort you out and you're out of the crowd. So maybe crowd surfing actually helps with that. But I don't know because I wasn't at the Astroworld thing. I want rock and metal fans to stop saying that this doesn't happen at rock and metal shows because it happened in 2000 at a Pearl Jam concert. Pearl Jam is exactly the heaviest band out there. I don't have the liberty to Google how recent, the deaths are at rock concerts, but stuff like this happens, and this wasn't a mosh pit. Coming up, it's Free Talk Live.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can't do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring Simon to the rally.
Walk with me. Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa, hey, who do you think you are? Excuse me.
There is no video and audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today.
You ain't gonna make it.
Wait a minute.
Whoa!
Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Why are you running from me? Because you scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. You're invited to join us, 603-283-6160. If you'd like to weigh in, you can talk about what we've been discussing or change the subject, talk about whatever's important to you. 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria.
And Nikki.
And Nikki, you brought in a story that is about a very stubborn, but delightfully so, second grader who has been now suspended 38 times.
Yep. This is coming out of Palm Beach County in Florida. A Florida second grader has been suspended from school nearly 40 times after she refused to wear a mask in the classroom. Now her teachers told her parents that she has missed so much class that she might flunk out of the second grade.
Well, then stop suspending her. You can't suspend a student 38 times and they go, she's missed so much class. Yes, because of you.
Yeah. That would be the logical thing to do, but they just love being tyrants.
And I'm surprised this is happening in Florida. I thought Florida was we're free and open, no mask mandate state.
It's probably county by county, school by school, so that must be where she's falling into. But this is Fiona Lascelles, who turned 8 years old, has been refusing to wear a mask in school for months. As a result, she's been suspended 38 times. In July, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed an executive order making face masks optional in schools. But in local school districts like Fiona's in Palm Beach County, mask mandates are still being enforced. So it is a county by county thing. But good for her for standing up for what she believes in. I want to kind of hear what she has to say about why. I don't know if it's maybe her parents have some influence or if she's just it's uncomfortable and I'm not wearing it.
It's definitely surprising to hear an 8-year-old doing this 38 times as well. This is someone who has convictions and is not going to be
she won't quit.
Punished into obeying. Admirable.
So this is what Fiona has to say.
Oh, they actually, okay.
Yep. You wear it for a long time and you breathe in all those germs, Fiona said to News Nation. You set it down at lunch and put it back on your face and breathe that in all day long. Well, she's not wrong. Now, every time Fiona refuses to wear a mask, she is suspended and sent home with a note explaining why. I was really shocked by it, Fiona's mom, Bailey Lachelle, said. I couldn't believe it was all over not complying with a mask mandate.
I'm glad the parent isn't upset about this.
Yeah.
And it's just this is stupid.
But it's just kind of ridiculous that she comes to school not wearing a mask, they suspend her again. After her suspension, she comes to school not wearing a mask, they suspend her again. It's just... It's strange to me that either her parents or the principal of the school aren't willing to come up with a better solution. Because to me, if this was my kid, I would either find a different school, I would school choice.
Certainly.
Or I would homeschool. I mean, you don't need to be super smart to homeschool your kids nowadays. You can, get some sort of online program that kind of homeschools your kid for you. So
YouTube will definitely do most of that for them.
Yeah. So, Fiona's latest suspension doesn't end until Monday, but Fiona's refusal to wear a mask represents a larger issue in Florida, a battle between county school boards pushing mask mandates and state policy in direct conflict. I'm doing it for
she's
other
at multi-day suspensions at this point. They're not just sending her home for the day. They're you're suspended for 5 days or whatever.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
And Fiona also says, I'm doing it for the other kids and not just myself. She sounds like a very mature second grader.
She does. And I'm impressed with her ability to, stand up for what she believes.
Yeah, and reason. And she's actually using real logic. It's not just I don't want to, I don't like it. This seems well thought out.
Yeah, because that's been my issue with the mask thing the entire time. You're basically just breathing germs into it. And it's a petri dish that your breath is keeping at the ideal conditions for human bacteria and viruses to continue growing. That seems to me silly.
And, PPE, like, personal protective equipment, like masks, gloves, gowns, and stuff like that, is meant to be worn for like 15 minutes or less. Or, if you're in the OR and you're a doctor, maybe like a few hours. They're not meant
Look, if they want to give me the kind of money that surgeons make to do my job
there's that
at
too.
the gas station, sure, I wear your stupid mask.
Well, and you
I don't work at a gas station. I'm just using that as an example.
You sign up for having to wear these PPEs, personal protective equipment, when you go into healthcare. You don't sign up for that when you work at the grocery store or the gas station. So, and it's not meant to be worn all day, every day. And I think that's the biggest thing. And that's why we're seeing people's immune system plummeting, people getting sicker, because masks aren't meant to be worn all day.
That's another good point. And something you said reminded me about it. Corey Taylor, the singer from Slipknot, said something about this recently. Or I don't know, maybe it was a year ago. But he was like, it's just a mask. I put on a mask and I wear it for our live shows 4 hours at a time. I'm like, dude, you're making rock star money here. Do you really expect the Starbucks barista to be willing to do that for her job in the same way that you are?
And why are you wearing a mask during the show?
Because that's what Slipknot does.
Yeah, but that's... Oh, okay. Yeah, he's talking about... I thought he was talking about like a surgical mask. He's talking about like a mask.
Yes, which probably is pretty uncomfortable, but you do make rock star money by doing that.
And it's like, that's a voluntary action. I mean, that's kind of their whole thing, right?
Also true.
I'm being forced to wear a mask at work.
Yeah.
So, and going beyond that, they're forcing children to wear masks. I mean, they're forcing preschoolers to wear masks. It's disgusting.
I went to a hospital. I took a friend to a hospital recently, and while we were waiting in the lobby, I watched a mother, put a mask on her little toddler. Kid may have been 3 years old, clearly did not want to wear the mask. And the mother said, yeah, I know, I'm sick of this too. And then proceeded not to put just one mask on the child, but 2 masks on the child. So I don't even believe the mother was sick of it, because the official mandates, the requirements was never to wear 2 masks.
Yeah. And if she was sick of it and if she was sorry for doing it to her kid, she would be doing, the bare minimum. Yeah. Or just not doing it at all.
Like, okay, just cover your mouth with it and, or chin strap it or whatever it is people do to avoid these mandates.
Yeah.
But it sucks to see that sort of thing, and it does feel like child abuse when you watch it happening. I'm not saying it is child abuse, but it's at least not right, and it's unsettling, and it should give parents pause when their kids are kicking and screaming about how they don't want to wear this thing over their face, and you force them to do it anyway.
Yeah, I recently saw a video that was caught on like the camera from a Ring doorbell, and it was this little girl having a complete meltdown. I mean, she was probably in like 1st or 2nd grade, but she was crying, just having a complete meltdown over having to wear the mask. And it was just like, it was really hard to watch. I mean, it was heartbreaking that, and not all kids feel this way. I know I've had a lot of parents tell me that, their kids are young and they have no issue wearing the mask and, they don't have an issue with it. But when you're forcing kids to, and they're kicking, screaming, and crying not to wear it because they can't breathe, those were the words she was saying. She was saying, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And I used to have asthma when I was a kid, so I get it when something's on your face and you feel claustrophobic, you're already having a tough time breathing, and you feel like somebody's putting a bag over your head. I could just imagine what was going through that little girl's mind. So it was just really, really hard to watch.
Not to mention that it can trigger an anxiety attack, and they struggle even more to breathe. It's sad that it's gotten to this point where they're actually mandating that this is required. You're required to torture your kids. Do you remember a few years ago under Barack Obama when he floated this idea of joining the military or joining the Peace Corps for a few years? Well, that whole idea is resurfacing, and we're going to get into it here on Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. The United States and China say they will accelerate action together to tackle climate change this decade. The two countries have issued a surprise joint statement at COP26 in Glasgow. It pledges joint action to protect the environment and implement the goals agreed in the Paris Climate Change Accords 6 years ago. Hailing the announcement, U.S. climate change czar John Kerry.
The effort to reduce emissions by 45% in this decade is a tall order, and it will require all of our nations coming together in order to achieve it. This declaration makes a statement about that effort to cooperate, about the imperative to cooperate.
The deal comes just days before a possible virtual summit between President Biden and President Xi Jinping, with no shortage of tensions to try and alleviate in their bilateral relationship. In other news, Belarusian opposition leaders are calling on the EU to impose fresh sanctions on President Alexander Lukashenko, accusing him of fueling a migrant crisis along the border with Poland. Thousands of people from the Middle East brought to Belarus are now seeking to cross the border into Poland, which is an EU member state. Joe Barnes is Brussels correspondent for the Daily Telegraph.
The EU is trying to send all of its resources to Poland. Europol, which is the European Union's police kind of force, Frontex, its border agency. The EU are working on further sanctions at the moment that they can slap the Belarusian regime with, but previous sanctions haven't worked and it's only escalated the crisis.
A European Union court has upheld a $2.8 billion fine levied against Google. The action was brought by antitrust authorities in Brussels. Google can challenge the ruling at the European Court of Justice. The trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, the teenager accused of shooting dead two demonstrators at a Black Lives Matter protest in Wisconsin last year, saw dramatic scenes on Wednesday. The accused gunman sobbed as he described the moments that led to the shooting. The judge in the case furiously criticised prosecutors, accusing them of deliberately flouting his orders on testimony in the case. The defence wants a mistrial, but for now the case continues. The US Department of Justice is suing Uber for charging waiting time fees to disabled passengers. From FSN's bureau in Silicon Valley, Ira Spitzer reports.
The federal lawsuit alleges that Uber's practice of charging customers 2 minutes after a driver arrives violates the rights of disabled passengers who may need more time to get into the vehicle. The Justice Department is asking the court to order Uber to modify its wait fee policy, as well as pay monetary damages. Previously, the ride-sharing firm reached a 2018 settlement with New York City over its ability to accommodate riders with wheelchairs. Ira Spitzer, San Francisco.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, where you're invited to take control of the airwaves, talk about whatever's important to you. That's 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. 603-283-6160. And I want to tell you about Bitcoin.com. It is the best place to go to learn about cryptocurrency. Just click Getting Started at the top of the page. Take a few minutes out of your day to learn about this important world-changing information because it's not going away. And as I understand it, Bitcoin is slightly down versus its new record high that it achieved yesterday, but it'll be at a new record high in just a few days. It's not going anywhere, and based on the trends, I'm willing to speculate that it's going to hit 100,000 before it hits 10,000. So it's time to learn about it if you haven't already. So head on over to Bitcoin.com and do that. And if you are already knowledgeable about cryptocurrency, visit news.bitcoin.com to stay up to date on all the news and headlines that are relevant to you. That's news.bitcoin.com. Let's go to the phones. We have someone named Mark calling. Sir, do I know you?
That's right.
Well, you told me what days Ian was not on the air, and obviously I don't want to get my long-term business partner and good friend thrown back in the pokey by calling in and forcing him to communicate with me. The courts have said that he isn't allowed to communicate with me, but the results of that are that I am my First Amendment rights to communicate to people via Free Talk Live are being infringed. I'd really like a First Amendment lawyer to take this up, but I don't suspect they will. So, I listened.
It sucks. We've been experiencing something, similar here. I was recently invited to a potluck dinner Saturday, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go. And then the person who was organizing said, oh, well, nobody's coming. That's not a problem. And I was like, yes, it's obviously a problem. That means I can't go. So,
it means nobody can't go, right?
No, it means I can't go because they had already invited him, and they weren't going to uninvite him, and I wouldn't allow them to uninvite him.
Yeah. That sucks, though.
I understand that, but
But then there's the Thanksgiving thing, and they invited me to that. They're like, okay, well, we're inviting you, and that means we can't invite nobody, and that sucks. It's not like, hey, invite me, not him. It's like the entire Liberty community, yourself included, is having to play like divorced parents about when they have custody of me or Ian or nobody, and it's absolutely frustrating.
Really weird. Yeah. We're not even the divorced parents. We're the boyfriend or girlfriend of the parents now dating, right? Like you're not even allowed to be around, But right, and I'm not in New Hampshire as a result. What would be the point of me being in New Hampshire? So I can be on the show 2 days a week. Ian's doing fine on the show, and the show's doing well. As a matter of fact, downloads are at all-time highs, and I haven't been on the show in like close to 2 months, so I certainly can't claim, the responsibility for getting those downloads. By the way, I listened to the Sunday show with, is that Nikki there on the air?
Yes, it's me.
So great. If people don't know, you got to listen to this Sunday show. The chemistry is awesome, and I really enjoyed what I heard. So, kudos to you guys.
Thank you. I really enjoyed doing the show with Captain and Richie Rich. And obviously, I love doing the show with Arya, too.
Yep. Well, the fact that you're on twice a week speaks to your talent. They've recognized your talent already. So, what I want to talk about is I listened to the show from 2 nights ago. I'm listening to the digest. You can go to, how do you find the digest, Arya? You go to listen.freetalklive.com and get the RSS feed there.
I don't know. I would recommend people listen to the entire episode, which they can find at archive.freetalklive.com.
They can do that. There's also a digest version, which is 40 minutes long, where our good friend Riley Blake, takes a 2-hour show and shrinks it down to 30, 40 minutes. And I think that's great for people on the go, and it's working for me. So I'm happy to listen to it. And what Ian was talking about
Monday night
on the air.
So 2 nights ago would have been Monday night. That would have been myself, Ian, and Bonnie, right?
Right. And y'all were talking about secession. Specifically New Hampshire secession. Everybody's just giddy as they could be about this pointless and silly bill that has New Hampshire, let's see, it has the legislature voting on whether or not the public can vote to secede from the Union. Now, one thing I didn't get from listening was, is it a 50% plus one vote, or is it a 66% plus one, or
it is a 2/3.
75%?
It is a 2/3.
All right, so
2/3 of people who vote on the constitutional amendment have to vote yes in order for it to pass.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't clear on that from listening. It was probably said, and I just didn't get to hear it all.
Well, it may have gotten clipped from the digest, which is why people should listen to the full show.
It's true, yeah. Dedicate 2 hours of your day. Listen to Free Talk Live. Please do. You know what? I don't care if you listen. Download the podcast at listen.freetalklive.com. Download it on your mother's computer. Download it on every computer you have. Download it.
Isn't he such a great salesman for the show?
Yeah.
So what were your thoughts about secession?
So the bill is first off, anything that's 2/3 is unlikely to go. But let's say it does. This is going to be the worst thing that happened to New Hampshire.
Wow.
Frankly.
That's hard to do.
A guy called in and tried to tell you guys. And, of course, he had no, he got no purchase with you. But let me tell you a real quick story about Switzerland. So the United States rolls out these rules called FATCA. And I even took the time to look this up so that you can check it out. It's Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. Now, the United States Congress said that foreign banks in other countries must comply with all of these rules in order to do business with Americans. And Switzerland, among other places, said, you can't pass laws on us. Who do you think you are? And they continued to go about their business as they wanted to, with numbered accounts and these sorts of things. Remember when they used to talk about Swiss bank accounts and how, naughty it was to have those? Well, not anymore. Because the United States...
No, it's the Cayman Islands, right?
There's a variety of different places where you can still do it, and I certainly wouldn't say so on national radio where people can, in all likelihood the FBI is listening in and they go chase people around. But, you can look it up if it's something that is important to you. But Switzerland used to be known for its numbered bank accounts, and now they've fallen in line. I'll tell you why. Because Switzerland told the United States to go pound sand. The United States, the one that controls what they call the SWIFT number, the SWIFT banking system.
Yeah, which is the
interbank banking system.
Right.
And they shut Switzerland off. I believe the time was 37 minutes. They shut down Switzerland for 37 minutes, and they came crawling back.
I mean, that's all well and good, but there aren't likely to exist banks in the state of New Hampshire as such. Switzerland already has its own currency. The most likely currency to be in use by the free state of New Hampshire would be USD and cryptocurrency.
Sure. But how are the banks going to do business? There's plenty of banks. Go check out Belize. You can do business in U.S. dollars in Belize, but Bank of America won't do business with the bank that you have your U.S. dollars in. I
don't want to do business with Bank of America.
I hear that you don't want to, but there's somebody in New Hampshire that wants to.
Well, then they can go to Massachusetts. If they want to play with that evil organization, then they can go to Massachusetts and they can play with that evil organization all they want. Mark, can you stick around for a minute?
Yep.
Yeah, because I get the feeling you have more to say about this. It's certainly an interesting story that Switzerland would buckle in 37 minutes, but I don't see pressure like that from the United States government doing anything but strengthening the inherent resolve of New Hampshire natives and members of the Free State Project. But I could be wrong. What do you think? 603-283-6160. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where you are invited to join us. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. That's 603-283-6160. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
And Nikki.
And surprisingly, we're actually being joined by Mark of, Free Talk Live. I don't know how else to introduce him. He's been gone for the show for several months now, and people are always asking, where's Mark? When's Mark coming back? It's like, dude, it's a little bit complicated at the moment. We're doing what we can. We actually have something from you tonight about time change that we're going to be sharing with the audience members, so stay tuned for that. But we actually have Mark here now with us live-ish. I mean, he's not here with us. He's elsewhere, but he's on the show with us talking about secession. And, I agree there are some bad things that could happen. It's not going to be a walk in the park if you let's say everything goes according to plan and this constitutional amendment passes and New Hampshire just instantly declares itself independent from the United States. That's not going to solve all of our problems. It's going to raise some major issues. Like there's going to be stuff. Suddenly those borders between Massachusetts and Vermont and Maine, those are now international borders. And someone's going to have to decide how to handle that. And the United States on their end is going to have to decide how they want to handle it. Now, things like NAFTA and open borders with Canada and sort of ish with Mexico, these things sort of already exist. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't continue to exist. But the idea of New Hampshire's secession is to declare independence immediately and to avoid getting caught up in one of these Brexit situations. First, we declare independence, and then we negotiate all that other stuff.
I think that's a wonderful idea in sort of the let's write a novel about a future dystopian disaster. Sure.
I don't know why you have so little faith in.
Because I want to tell you, there's a lot of people who live in Manchester that drive to work in Boston that get paid from a company that's in Massachusetts that can't make that kind of money working in New Hampshire. And what you want to do, what this bill would do, is ruin their lives.
Not necessarily.
Well, they can. Yeah, I mean, international jobs are a thing right now anyway.
They can go pound sand, right?
No, well, I mean, they can go. They can move to Boston if they so choose, or they could just continue working internationally, just like they do now.
They would still be able to commute.
Cross the border between the United States and Mexico? Do you think this is going to go well when you tell the United States to F off? You think they're just going to be, well, let's set up some border patrols and make sure that we, treat everybody nice and fairly?
I don't think
do that.
No, I don't think they would bother with setting up border patrols. They'd be like, look, this is.
I think they'd tell you that. I think they'd put Army, National Guard people on the border and say any car that drives across here gets shot.
I don't think so.
I don't think
that's what you're. That they're going to use that scare tactic when the vote comes up.
They will.
And you're never going to get your vote. Now, what I'm going to tell you though
are you
is,
suggesting that people will be
today?
People will be terrified, so terrified of what the federal government could do to them for having the desire to be independent, that they will just willfully bow back down in fear of this monster hurting them more?
Have you seen any evidence that they would do otherwise?
Yes, I mean, secession seems to be
yes.
Independence.
The people of Cuba have allowed their government to treat them terribly for the last 6 decades. I mean, they went out and they were killing those people just a couple of months ago over going out in the street and asking for better medical treatment.
New Hampshire isn't Cuba, though.
I understand New Hampshire isn't Cuba, but
and the U.S. government isn't as bad as the Cuban government.
Governments are a service organization, for better or for worse. Right? The United States government is a better service organization than the Cuban government, as long as you don't consider that they drop $1 million bombs on $10 tents and waste a bunch of tax money to support the military-industrial complex.
And to raid the Free Talk Live studio and arrest several of its hosts.
Right, and like what we've just talked about in the last 20 seconds is 2 instances where the monopoly on force of the most powerful nation to ever exist has been used capriciously and arbitrarily. Do I think the people of New Hampshire should watch out if they tell it to go take a long walk off a short pier? Yes, I do. But I'm telling the people of New Hampshire and everybody else within the sound of my voice that right now you can secede from the United States, and all you have to do is go to United.com and buy a plane ticket and leave. It's true. You don't have to deal with these people, and I've done that.
I have to at present, unfortunately.
You do. That's the truth, because you are out on bond and you're not allowed to leave. But the amount of people that truly aren't allowed to leave listening to me, you're in the 1%.
And that doesn't really solve the problem. That just puts them under the control of a government that most likely isn't as benign, and I hate even using that word, but comparatively, the United States government does appear to be relatively benign. You're just putting them under a worse government.
Have you ever spent any time? I would like to recommend to everybody right now to go to audible.com and get your free download if you haven't done it so far, but pay for it if you haven't. Harry Brown's How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World. It was written in the early 70s, but it still holds true today. You can be as free as you want to be, and you can do it from within the United States. There are ways to do all of it.
If you don't mind the occasional getting arrested by the FBI thing or getting your studio raided thing, sure. But people can only be free.
You would agree with me. Hold on. The studio got raided because Ian wanted to spread the ideas of Bitcoin. He knew that Bitcoin is a disruptive and revolutionary technology that is going to undermine the state. And he went about, proselytizing this. And I'm not saying this is bad. I'm saying this is great. I mean, the man's a freaking hero. But it doesn't change the fact that he kind of had some idea of what he was doing. He was preparing a lawsuit to sue the FBI.
I have no comment, but that also that doesn't explain the raid in 2015.
2015 occurred 1 week after I called the FBI unprofessional for their behavior in trying to assassinate the last 3 people at the Malheur Wildlife Refuge, and 1 month after I said that the FBI is an organization that is the largest distributor of child pornography on the planet.
I know, so just exercising your First Amendment rights.
Right. Well, yeah, but I mean, do you really expect people to uphold the First Amendment?
That's exactly my point, Mark. Is that people can only be free within the constraints of the United States as long as they stay off the government's radar. There are plenty of people who are like, I haven't paid my taxes since 2005. Yeah, okay, that's fine. But if you're Jeff Bezos or whoever, they're going to find out and they're going to come after you.
Jeff Bezos doesn't have to pay taxes. There's
no, because he's got enough Yes, he's got enough attorneys and enough money where he can do that. But let's just use a different example then of someone who's just a millionaire.
Of course. So a millionaire is going to have more difficult times. It depends on each person's tax situation and how they want to go about it. But it is possible to be freer than you are.
It's not. It's not. Life in the United States is never a matter of freedom. It's about...
Then leave. That's what I'm saying.
Well, that's what New Hampshire is trying to do.
I know you can't.
That's what New Hampshire is trying to do.
It's not. New Hampshire isn't trying anything. New Hampshire doesn't exist. Some Pollyannas in the State House believe that they're going to get the people of New Hampshire the opportunity to vote. It's never even going to get that far. And,
I disagree. There's a lot of energy behind it.
Okay, good luck to you guys. But I'm telling you, it isn't good. The better thing to do is to go to t.me/Coral Beach Village and watch what I'm doing. By the way, we've got Coral Beach Village there and the sign. And Aria, I wish you'd stop stealing the C off of it. It's really upsetting to all of us.
What?
The C off of Coral Beach Village. You keep stealing it.
I don't think I follow.
I think he's trying to make a joke.
All right.
It's not a very good joke.
It's a great joke. So at Coral, if you go to T, as in Telegram, t.me/Coral Beach Village, you can sign up and talk about, a real secession project where real Americans are going to be really free.
How many Americans?
Immediately. You don't have to wait. At this point, we have probably 50 North Americans, is what I'm calling them, because it's both Canadians and United States. And there's a smattering of Europeans, but English is the spoken language. There at Coral Beach Village, and we're building housing, and we're bringing more. And yeah, it's a pretty darn free place, and I can outline more questions if people go there.
Well, thank you so much for the call tonight, Mark. I mean, I'm glad you're succeeding in something, but doesn't mean we can't all be successful, or it doesn't mean you have to knock what New Hampshire is doing. It's Free Talk Live.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, Mark at freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The American teenager accused of fatally shooting 2 people during a night of protests has told a court he didn't do anything wrong. Kyle Rittenhouse cried as he testified in his double murder trial, arguing he acted to protect himself. Rittenhouse went armed to a protest in Kenosha, Wisconsin last summer, following the shooting of African-American Jacob Blake. U.S. correspondent Nick Harper reports.
I was cornered from in front of me with...
Describing that night and the violent confrontations, Kyle Rittenhouse broke down on the stand, saying he was acting in self-defense. Prosecutors argue Rittenhouse, armed with a semi-automatic rifle during demonstrations, was looking for trouble. He'd fired it, killing 2 men and wounding a third. At times, the day in court was tense and confusing. The judge in the case, Bruce Schroeder, reprimanding, accusing the prosecution of speaking about incidents the judge had already ruled as inadmissible.
That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years.
The 18-year-old's defense team asked the judge to rule it a mistrial, but prosecutor Thomas Binger pressed on with cross-examination. Rittenhouse has pleaded not guilty to the charges against him.
Airlines in Hong Kong are urging the government to resist further tightening the city's COVID-19 quarantine rules after 2 cargo pilots tested positive for the virus. Local flight crews are currently exempt from quarantine, but health officials say that may have to change. FSN's Richard Kimber reports from Hong Kong.
The 2 Cathay Pacific airline pilots returned to Hong Kong from Germany on Saturday. They tested negative at the airport, but later tested positive after showing symptoms of COVID-19. Health officials say they were most likely infected overseas. Hong Kong flight crew are currently required to stay in their hotels while they're overseas, but unlike other travellers, they're not required to quarantine in a hotel in Hong Kong when they return, provided they test negative for COVID-19 at the airport. Hong Kong is cancelling all other exemption rules for non-essential travellers from Friday, but flight crew currently remain exempted. Cathay Pacific says any further tightening of the rules may force it to cut flights and hamper the global supply chain.
U.S. markets dropped in Wednesday's trading following data that showed inflation hitting a 30-year high. The Consumer Price Index for October rose 6.2% compared to a year earlier. Tech stocks took the biggest hit as investors instead turned their attention to gold and cryptocurrency. And a U.S. judge has ruled that former President Donald Trump will not be able to keep documents relating to the January 6th Capitol Hill attack secret. An inquiry is looking at whether Trump knew about the riot before it happened. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking today at the growing presence of Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, in a big political debate here in Washington. Over the last 3 weeks, she has written to Democratic leaders in Congress, urging them to pass provisions for 12 weeks of paid family and medical leave for new parents in the United States. She has also cold-called Republican senators, pressing them on the issue and catching them by surprise when they answer the phone to hear her voice on the other end of the line. And yesterday she appeared at the New York Times Deal Book Summit to campaign over paid parental leave.
I've been gone from the U.S. for a really long time, and to come back and to see that the U.S. is one of only 6 countries in the entire world that doesn't offer any form of national paid leave, I guess my approach was the same as it's been since I was really young. When I was 11 and I saw something that was wrong on TV, I put pen to paper and wrote a letter about it. So on this, I said, well, let me write a letter and let me pick up the phone and make some calls and see if I can help. It To me, it seems like a really logical and obvious thing to do, and I'm happy that I'm able to support it.
All of this comes after unnamed friends and associates told reporters that the Duchess covets a political career and is considering a run for office. She'll be in Washington in a few weeks to attend a dinner for women lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Some of them may be wondering if she has any plans to try and join their number. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. American teenager Kyle Rittenhouse, who is accused of fatally shooting 2 people during a night of protests, tells a court he didn't do anything wrong. U.S. markets drop in Wednesday trading following data that showed inflation hitting a 30-year high. And airlines in Hong Kong urge the government to not tighten the city's COVID-19 quarantine rules after 2 cargo pilots test positive for the virus. That is the latest feature story news.
Well, folks, look who came crawling back to Pennington.
That's right, Jeff Statsky. Just 4 years after leaving town to make it as a songwriter and musician on the East Coast, Mr. Hot himself, Jeff Statsky, has returned. Locals are simply stunned that Mr. Ambition himself would deign to move back to Pennington, the town he once said, quote, wasn't big enough for his music. Tuffy's Bar is even planning a welcome home party for the would-be Bob Dylan.
We got a nice cushioned stool for his precious little East Coast ass. Hey, Jeffy boy, we got the radio on. We're still waiting to hear that big song of yours. Where is it?
Local business owners say Statsky might have just as hard a time finding work here in Pennington as he did when he was trying to be a dainty little songsmith in Coolsville.
Oh, sure, I could set him up with a job, no sweat. Oh, wait, come to think of it, we don't have any openings right now for tambourine-shaking pansies who got dick-slapped by the big city.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, where you can weigh in with whatever is important to you. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. That's 603-283-6160. And, you know, I like Mark's idea. We were just talking with Mark Edge, for those who are just now tuning in. And he is pimping his latest project. I thought it was honestly being called Mark Edge's Freedom Kingdom, but he... which I was totally on board with. I mean,
that's a different place.
But now it's called Coral Reef Village or something. I don't remember exactly. Coral Beach Village is what it was.
I just assumed he had like a few different things going on, but I could be mistaken. It could be all the same thing.
He tends to have a few different things going on, but I think this is the same one in the Honduras. I don't know, and I can't use the Telegram chat to head over there and check it out. But of course, I find the idea intriguing. And if there were more than 50 people there, I would, and I wasn't currently beholden to the United States federal government and kept on a fairly short, actually it's a decent leash as far as my physical movement goes. My digital movement is heavily restricted, but no international travel, and that would require international travel. Anyway, if that wasn't the case, I would be interested if there were more than 50 people there. If you take 50 random libertarian conservative type people, I'm not going to get along well with most of them.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got to have a much larger crowd than that to have somewhere where I can fit in. And I don't know, maybe these are just hardcore anarchists who I would fit in with just fine, but it's not very likely based on what I know of libertarians.
Yeah. And, I love the idea. And I think we should have as many freedom movements going on around the world as possible. So that's awesome that he's doing that in Honduras. It's awesome that we're doing this in New Hampshire. And I think people, wherever you are, if you love liberty, if you love peace and freedom, you should, be spreading the word and starting these projects up wherever you can.
I agree to an extent, but I think, a lot of people ask this question online a lot. Like, is there a free state project for Nevada or Tennessee or whatever? It's like, look, instead of seeing what we're doing and trying to do it there, just join us here and help out here. There are definitely different goals for different people that can be achieved different ways. Like Mark is the type, he wants to be free right now.
Yeah.
And that's it. So he's going to do whatever it takes to be free right now, and that's it. Others, we're like, we want to fight for long-term liberty, not necessarily for ourselves, but for everyone. And Mark Edge's idea. In theory, it could provide liberty to everyone. But you got to have some fairly decent financial standing to be able to just go move to the Honduras and live there in a community of 50 people, basically without a job.
I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah. So that's not an ideal solution for everyone versus the Free State Project, which does have plenty of jobs for people. So there are different avenues that people can take, and each one has their own place. I just don't want to see the two projects getting in each other's way. Like, let's do the Free State Project in Massachusetts and get some libertarians in Massachusetts to all move to the same county or whatever. It's like, okay, but you could just move a little bit further and you could join our thing and make it successful.
There definitely is power in numbers.
There definitely is. Let's go to the phone. So we have Dave calling from RidleyReport.com. Dave, you're on Free Talk Live.
I was going to talk about something else, but how about I rebut Mark?
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. So, Mark, at least to his credit, is trying to do something as opposed to just criticizing something. He's trying to do this, and he's tried to do some other things, too. And they haven't been complete failures, right? But if I was following Mark, that's exactly what I'd be doing. I'd be following Mark. I'd be bouncing all over the world. I'd be spending thousands and thousands of dollars I don't have. I can't do all that stuff. At first it was going to be the Marianas, then it's Honduras. Where was it before that? I don't know. I can't do that.
There were a number of places that we can't talk about because there are non-disclosure agreements in place.
What? A freedom movement that's secret? What is that going to do for us?
There was at least one other island and at least one Native American reservation. I think that's the most I can
fine.
say.
Yeah, mail that back. Mail those ideas back to 2001 when I was deciding where to move. Okay, so
I'm with you on this. I think what Mark is doing is great. I just wish he could do it without feeling the need to criticize what the Free State Project is doing.
Yeah, both things can happen simultaneously.
Well, actually, I was calling in to criticize some of the Free State Project is doing. But I'll do that tomorrow. so the other problem I have with his argument is he's essentially arguing we shouldn't do stuff because the federal government might hurt us. That's the reason why we're doing it, right? It's because they're hurting people.
Yeah, I agree entirely. I mean, staying in an abusive relationship because you're worried your abusive spouse will escalate from hitting you to killing you is no reason to stay in an abusive relationship. That's ultimately what that argument is. Well, you can't leave this abusive relationship because instead of just beating you half to death, they might beat you fully to death. It's like, okay, but look, getting half beaten to death regularly is no way to live anyway.
We're doing this independence drive because we're predicting where things will be in 2022 or maybe 2024. We're expecting that they will have deteriorated in the United States between here and there. I hope I'm wrong. And we're expecting, additionally, that more states will gradually come on board with this idea. We're not even the first. We're the third state that has an independence movement that's doing stuff inside the political system. Maybe the fourth if you count what Vermont was doing 10 years ago. So,
you're absolutely right about things deteriorating. One of the sites I'm allowed to use is Drudge Report. And when you go there each day, it's just a litany of headlines about how bad the U.S. economy is and how much worse it's going to get. And then the talking heads in the federal government going, no, this 9% inflation that wiped out your 4.5% wage increase, that's fine. Sure, you actually lost 5.5% of your wages, but don't even worry about that. We have everything under control. Oh, there's no turkeys this year for Thanksgiving? Have you tried tofu? So, yeah, things are deteriorating rapidly within the United States.
Vladimir Bukovsky and Natan Sharansky, they eventually got out. They didn't beat the Soviet Union by running away from it, right? They didn't beat the Soviet Union by going to some island. They beat it by going to jail, right? And that's probably what many of us are going to do.
I hope not.
Yeah, I don't want to go to jail. But I do. I hear what you're saying, though.
I think we lost you, though, Dave.
Oh, no, I'm here.
Okay. Independence, I think, is a great idea. The federal government is abusive. It's tyrannical, and it's been abusive and tyrannical toward Free Talk Live at least since 2015. Now, my question would be, what would you say to people who make those arguments that Mark made that they're going to punish you if you leave.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they said about the Soviet Union, but then one day there wasn't a Soviet Union, right? And that is what the same things are playing out here, right? The same phenomena are underway in the United States that brought down the Soviet Union. I'd be surprised if there is a United States federal government in 20 years. It's possible, but I don't think so.
That sounds wonderful. It's a dream.
I'm not convinced there's going to be a federal government by 2024. Not with everything I'm seeing with the economy and with the apparent aggressive posture from China and Russia. I know that the United States thinks it's tough, and the United States probably could hold its own in a war against China and Russia, but no one on the planet would benefit from such a thing.
But I think they know it. Like, I think the people that are kind of at the top of this circus know what's going on, and that's why we're seeing all of this money being printed out. That's why we're seeing all of this inflation. That's why we're seeing, these like final death blows of this empire, is because they know the writing's all over the walls. So I think the people that are like high up in the government are kind of trying to benefit and cash out as much as they can right now because they know that.
Thank you so much for the call tonight, Dave. Thank you for rebutting Mark. I'm not always, able to do that because he does make good points, but some of them I believe are just, incorrect, like that one. But yeah, the economic thing is disastrous. I mean, 9% inflation last month versus last year. That's almost 10% inflation in increase in prices, if we're measuring it that way, in a single year. That may not seem that bad, but for the United States, that's really bad. 603-283-6160. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealestate.com. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where we invite you to join us. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to weigh in. With you tonight, it's Aria.
And Nikki.
And we've been telling you about how Intercoin can help any business or organization launch their own currency or raise money using their own token. Now, Intercoin has launched its investor token worldwide, and for the first time, it's available on an exchange. And it's an exchange where all you need is an email address, so you can actually keep your privacy. It's xmarkets.com, exmarkets.com. You can deposit dozens of different cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, trade them for Tether, and then buy ITR, the Intercoin investor token. Learn more about the Intercoin vision at intercoin.org. That's INTER coin.org. And now buy or sell ITR on xmarkets.com, exmarkets.com. You may be helping the cause of liberty around the world by doing so, so check it out, exmarkets.com. Let's go to the phones. We have Kadu calling from Connecticut. Kadu, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, first of all, not sure what's going on with Mark's choral play on words there. Second of all, love you both. But thirdly, I just wanted to comment on the abortion thing that you were talking about earlier, just kind of more generally. It kind of bothers me how sometimes the discussion gets kind of muddled, and not to say that you guys were muddling it, but I feel like you can be, and I consider myself to be pretty anti-abortion overall, but at the same time, as a legal issue, I wouldn't want it to be something that like the state would enforce and go around, trying to stop and trying to prevent, especially in a situation where I guess the fetus would be kind of on the younger side. I don't have a specific, I haven't looked into it enough to know specifically, but like I consider myself anti-abortion, but at the same time, I don't want it to be like a legal thing, and I think it probably should be. So you think
a person should be free to make their own choice, but we should use reason or evidence or whatever to persuade them to make a certain choice. That's the pro-choice position. That's why it's called pro-choice.
Yeah, and kind of with the drug thing too, and not to say that having an abortion is like doing drugs or something, but yeah. So, but it kind of annoys me in a sense that I would have to be called like pro-abortion, and that's it, because I would not consider myself pro-abortion.
Well, you wouldn't be.
I mean? So that's kind of annoying.
Yeah, you're
pro-choice. Pro-choice is definitely different than pro-abortion. Like, I'm pro-choice, but I would never get an abortion unless it was for like medical reasons. And
but the thing is, could I still consider? Sorry to interrupt. Could I still consider myself pro-life though? Then, because I like that like term, you know.
I don't know about the connotations of pro-life, so I don't know.
I think pro-life, like the pro-life movement, has kind of been. Pro-life now is kind of just like anti-choice, is basically what the pro-life movement has turned into.
I guess I just hate like the language like around it and the way it's framed in that sense. But I guess, okay, so I would fall on pro-choice. You're saying based on how the debate's being framed.
Yeah, exactly. But to me, pro-choice doesn't seem like a negative thing. Like pro-choice isn't pro like baby murder. It's just pro freedom to choose.
Yeah, you mentioned the drug thing. I think I see where you were going with that. Like, I don't support the idea of people using crystal meth, but I'm in favor of their freedom to make that choice for themselves.
Yeah.
I would suggest to them that it's a bad idea, and I would attempt to persuade them not to do it, but in the end, it's their choice to make.
Exactly. And that's what I would say, and especially when I got to look a little more into this issue, but especially when, if it were to get to the point where, I guess the baby in there is almost like fully grown, I would definitely consider myself against it, but at the same time, I don't really know that I want even I'm not sure that I would even want some kind of enforcement around that. I'm not sure, but.
Yeah, see, my position on that is if you don't have a womb, you shouldn't have any say on the issue of abortion. And I realize this upsets a lot of people, but I mean, if the issue at hand is literally incapable of affecting you on a personal level, you can say, oh, well, it hurts my feelings that my girlfriend had an emotion. Okay, we're talking about real actual harm here, not hurt feelings. If an issue, whether it's legal or illegal, is incapable of having a direct impact on you or your health, you have no justification whatsoever for weighing in on it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
and this applies to me as well.
I feel like you might even be a little bit more pro-choice than me, possibly, if it were to be on a spectrum or something. But anyway, thanks for taking my call, guys.
Yeah, thanks for the call tonight, Kadu. It's certainly a difficult issue because, a lot of libertarians want to apply the non-aggression principle to it, but look, it's one of these issues where no matter which direction you choose, you're going to be violating the non-aggression principle. Either the woman's body is hers and she has the right to withdraw consent from this entity that is inside of it, or you can force her to do that against her will, which is violation of her bodily rights, or you can remove the fetus, which causes its death, regrettably, but that's also a violation of the non-aggression principle.
Yeah.
So there's no good answer here, and when the issue can't even affect me anyway, I'm just like, I'm out. People do what you want, but that's generally my position anyway.
It's tough, and it gets super muddy, especially how Kadu mentioned towards the end. He was mentioning late-term abortion and how he's kind of really against that. I mean, it gets really muddy there because then it's like, okay, this thing, it has a heartbeat. It is almost fully grown. If the mother would have had it right then and there, it could survive. I mean, when you get into late-term abortions, it just gets really, really complicated on, the philosophy behind it, and the ethics behind it. It's really just, even early-term abortion, it's really, tough. And even the women that have to have abortions or choose to have abortions, I mean, it's not an easy decision, so it's just really sucks, from all directions.
Yeah, I can't imagine anyone, being happy about having to have an abortion or anything like that. It just seems unrealistic to me. My sister had one, and there was no part of it that she enjoyed. It was
it's
a
traumatic
harrowing experience.
And it sucks that all of these pro-life people are, and I get where they're coming from. I do, because it's babies and people. Babies are cute in their little life. I totally get that. But these women are already making a really, really tough choice. And to make them feel so awful and to make them feel like they're a murderer and that they don't have rights over their own body and that they don't deserve a freedom to choose, that's really awful. So, they're already going through enough. You don't have to, put salt in their wounds.
That's one of the reasons I'm not a fan of government prohibiting things, but there's a law in the books that evidently prohibits people from protesting outside Planned Parenthoods. And having walked people past these protesters, it's not a fun thing to do. And It doesn't matter how nice the protesters are trying to be. You're making an already difficult situation for people just that much worse. Even if you're nice about it, God loves you and we'll help you solve this. Look, you're just not helping. They've made their decision. By this point, they're literally at Planned Parenthood. Their mind is made up. Leave them alone at that point. 603-283-6160 if you want to join us at 603-283-6160. When we get back, socialism hits America officially.
And now, time for something totally different. Intercoin is a project that's working to make crypto mainstream. We use the power of smart contracts to help any community in the world launch their own cryptocurrency. Ever wanted to release your own coin or build your own app to grow your business? Intercoin's team builds apps that have reached 9 million people around the world. And now it's time to help make a real social impact in your local community. Go to intercoin.org and join the movement. That's intercoin.org.
You know, when we first started Intercoin about 3 years ago, we had a big vision to help every community in the world have access to the same tools that large states and federations do, to hold local elections on the blockchain, to have their own local currency, shop local, hire local, and help fight the forces of globalization that have decimated some of these communities.
Go to intercoin.org and join the movement.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The American teenager accused of fatally shooting 2 people during a night of protests has told a court he didn't do anything wrong. Kyle Rittenhouse cried as he testified in his double murder trial, arguing he acted to protect himself. Rittenhouse went armed to a protest in Kenosha, Wisconsin last summer following the shooting of African-American Jacob Blake. U.S. correspondent Nick Harper reports.
I was cornered from in front of me with
Describing that night and the violent confrontations, Kyle Rittenhouse broke down on the stand, saying he was acting in self-defense. Prosecutors argue Rittenhouse, armed with a semi-automatic rifle during demonstrations, was looking for trouble. He'd fired it, killing 2 men and wounding a third. At times, the day in court was tense and confusing. The judge in the case, Bruce Schroeder, reprimanding, accusing the prosecution of speaking about incidents the judge had already ruled as inadmissible.
That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years.
The 18-year-old's defense team asked the judge to rule it a mistrial, but prosecutor Thomas Binger pressed on with cross-examination. Rittenhouse has pleaded not guilty to the charges against him.
Airlines in Hong Kong are urging the government to resist further tightening the city's COVID-19 quarantine rules after 2 cargo pilots tested positive for the virus. Local flight crews are currently exempt from quarantine, but health officials say that may have to change. FSN's Richard Kimber reports from Hong Kong.
The 2 Cathay Pacific airline pilots returned to Hong Kong from Germany on Saturday. They tested negative at the airport, but later tested positive after showing symptoms of COVID-19. Health officials say they were most likely infected overseas. Hong Kong flight crew are currently required to stay in their hotels while they're overseas, but unlike other travellers, they're not required to quarantine in a hotel in Hong Kong when they return, provided they test negative for COVID-19 at the airport. Hong Kong is cancelling all other exemption rules for non-essential travellers from Friday, but flight crew currently remain exempted. Cathay Pacific says any further tightening of the rules may force it to cut flights and hamper the global supply chain.
U.S. markets dropped in Wednesday's trading following data that showed inflation hitting a 30-year high. The Consumer Price Index for October rose 6.2% compared to a year earlier. Tech stocks took the biggest hit as investors instead turned their attention to gold and cryptocurrency. And a U.S. judge has ruled that former President Donald Trump will not be able to keep documents relating to the January 6th Capitol Hill attack secret. An inquiry is looking at whether Trump knew about the riot before it happened. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and I want to say thank you to Eric Haley, who is tonight's amplifier. That means Eric Haley is a member of our new AMPS program. You can find it at amps.freetalklive.com. It stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support Free Talk Live. And if you value the show, the ideas of liberty, help us reach a larger audience, get on more radio stations, get, as Mark pointed out, more record podcast downloads. In fact, joining the AMPS program is the best way to do that. That's amps.freetalklive.com. Eric Haley is a gold level member, which means Eric is giving $10 per month to the AMPS program. It doesn't take that, though. All it takes is $5 per month. That gets you in. And it comes with a number of cool little features like an AMP-only chat on the Matrix server, an AMP-only podcast feed, which actually doesn't have the podcast ads looped into it. So if you like that, you might check it out. amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. Nikki, you brought in a story that's worth talking about, and I hate that we ended up getting distracted by Mark for half an hour because it's worth talking about. Now, it reminds me of the Biden administration. They floated it early
You mean the
on.
Obama?
Yes, the Obama administration. Early on in his presidency, this idea that we could unite the country, or it wasn't about uniting the country then, it was about making young people feel invested in the United States idea as a whole by having them serve either 2 years in the military or like 2 years in the Peace Corps or something like that. I don't remember the specifics now because that was like 14 years ago, I think. But now that idea is coming back in a slightly different form.
Yep. So this is, to save democracy, America needs a mandatory public service program. An ambitious program for young Americans could help heal the country's divides. I mean, that's a tall order, but we'll see. And also, it's worth mentioning that the photo that they use to kind of promote this is a picture from 1933 of a wheelbarrow brigade of men from the Civilian Conservation Corps working to build a new road in New Jersey. And it's like a black, it looks just like some communist, like it is not the picture that I would use to promote this project if I wanted it to look like, oh, it's all rainbows and sunshine and this is going to heal the country's divides. This is not what that picture says.
And let's just reiterate here that what they're saying is that to save democracy, America needs slave labor. Because that's what,
mandatory.
Yes. And as you pointed out, we haven't gotten into that in the article yet, but they're not going to pay people for this.
No, but they'll have their own ways of compensation. Oh, don't you worry.
Well,
you won't need money in this new world.
The American slaves also did technically get fed and did technically get roofs over their heads.
Yep.
That didn't stop it from being slavery, though.
Polarization in the United States is a well-trodden ground. As the media reminds us every day, the nation has become deeply divided and politically dysfunctional. People in the blue states don't talk to those in the red states or even live in the same reality. Social classes rarely mix. The social, political, and academic tribalism reigns supreme. But no one has seriously considered what may be a genuinely transformative solution, a mandatory national service program. I don't know why they would think that this would help. They're like, oh, well, we're going to force all of the young adults to work together, and that way they won't be, we're going to brainwash them to all think the same way.
Look, if this didn't work when they were in kindergarten or elementary school or middle school or high school or college, it's not going to work when they're out of college.
But it's just because they live in different states. That must be why. It's because they live in red states. The article goes on to say it's becoming increasingly apparent that something visionary and ambitious will be required for Americans to heal their democracy and transcend their divides.
No. It's easier than that. Just secede. Yeah. You're not healing this mess. You can't reconcile the differences between your rural Mississippian redneck and your San Francisco liberal.
And that's the thing, too. Like, America is a big place. So sometimes we just need to, it's okay to be different. We don't all have to be the same. We don't all have to have the same ideas and all want the same things.
But the existence of the federal government and a single entity that has to rule over us, it gives people that illusion that we do all have to kind of want the same things.
Yep, and that's kind of what they're trying to fix with this mandatory public service program. So a program of mandatory national service, if designed effectively, would bring together young Americans from across the country and all socioeconomic groups to work on public interest projects and accomplish common goals for the good of the country.
They're really insane if they think that, the children of Donald Trump or Joe Biden are going to participate in this thing. They're going to get waivers one way or another.
Yeah.
You're not bringing the ultra rich into here to work with the guy who grew up on the farm.
Well, this is just going to be designed very effectively, so we won't have to worry about that because it's going to be designed so effectively that nobody can get out of it.
It'll be the best socialist project we've ever seen.
Yeah. So,
I wonder how many people this one will kill.
Yeah. The public services, a program along these lines could provide... Oh, sorry, I read that wrong. The public services... a program along these lines could provide are virtually limitless. They could include tutoring and mentoring, participating in after-school enrichment programs, improving environmental conservation, building public housing, organizing youth networks, providing real-time information during natural disasters, assisting small businesses through outreach to young consumers, construction, rehabilitation, the list goes on. Essentially, participants would provide much-needed public services and in return receive significant benefits, including covered college or trade school tuition and living expenses that would lessen the country's socio-economic divide. In doing so, they would interact with Americans from other communities, gain life skills, and transform their own futures and that of the country itself. So they're trying to make this seem like a good thing. But to me, all I'm hearing is communism, socialism. That's what this is. They're doing a mandatory service thing where they're forcing people to work on these projects. I doubt they'll get to pick the projects that they work on. And, you don't have to worry because you're going to go to school for free and we're going to cover all of your living expenses. So you don't need to worry about food or an apartment. We'll give you some awful rundown apartment and we'll give you little food stipends and you get what you get.
I can't disagree. That's exactly what it sounds like. I don't know. You have to be able to pit these projects, though, because there are a lot of people who are millionaires who couldn't afford to get their kids out of it, but they want to get their kids the cushy air-conditioned job, and we would certainly see that. This isn't going to erase any socioeconomic divides. If you really think the rich kids are going to be out there working construction, you've lost your mind and you've never seen communism in action.
And just the fact that it's not a voluntary thing, that it's mandatory, it's just, you lost me there.
Yeah, you want free college, you got to be a slave for a few years.
Maybe I don't want to go to college.
I woun't want to go to college if I had to be a slave for a few years.
Yeah, no.
But that just makes it free. And of course, the rich kids don't need that free education. They can just have their parents pay for it.
Exactly. Oh, and just wait, it gets better. There is a precedent for similar visionary, transformative, and generous programs. The GI Bill passed nearly at the end of World War II that gave millions of Americans returning from war free education and a ticket to the middle class. If the U.S. Congress did it then, it can do it now.
I don't know if I want to look to World War II for examples on how the current government should be legislating.
Yeah, no, food rations, it just doesn't...
And I don't know much about the GI Bill, but...
It just doesn't sound good.
It doesn't.
No. Although some may think this idea is unrealistic, public service programs have been gaining serious attention in Washington in recent years.
Oh, I really hope that's not the case. And I suspect it's just some liberal, progressive daydreaming and fantasizing about these things. When we get back, Mark is going to yell at us for a bit. Well, not really yell, but he's going to rant a bit about time change. That's coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
All right, it's another edition of the Edgington Post Show, and my name is Mark Edge. For those of you who are new, and I've been looking at the downloads for Free Talk Live, there are quite a few of you that are new. I am one of the founding hosts of Free Talk Live. After the raid on the studios back on March the 21st, I took over and produced most of the shows that were going on there for a couple of months until we were able to get Ian out. And sometime before he got out, I decided to go out on the road. And what I'm doing is looking for more free places in order to set up another studio to see whether or not Free Talk Live can continue to survive outside of the United States, where the FBI can't just kick the door in whenever they feel like it. And I've got certainly more to talk about that coming up in the near future. But today I want to talk about time changes. All of you should have recently experienced this time change, except for some folks in Arizona, and it used to be Indiana, but I think it may just be Arizona at this point in the United States. This seems to be a topic that libertarians love to discuss. The time change. Who these people are that think they can control time? And obviously it's, the history of daylight savings is really pretty funny. This has been prescribed from everything from it helps the farmers to it helps the school kids to everything. I mean, it's the most overprescribed solution to a non-problem ever. And I'm against daylight saving time generally. But usually when you start talking to people, they like the time in the summer more than they like the time in the winter. And it's the time in the summer which is daylight saving time, not the time in the winter. Time in the winter is standard time. Now, you would think that winter would be daylight saving time, because when do we need to save daylight? Of course, during the time that it's darkest. But not so much. In fact, they peel off an hour in the bottom and put it on the top, and that kind of thing back in the summertime, but not in the winter. So the question is would we go and get rid of daylight saving time in the summer, which is the time that people like, or would we just move everybody over one time zone effectively? Because when in Eastern time, which this is what I'm in currently, Eastern time we're on Eastern time for 5 months out of the year, and then effectively we're on Atlantic time, the time that Nova Scotia's on, for the other half of the year. And it's actually 7 months. So more of the year is spent on Atlantic time than on Eastern time. But if you stop doing daylight saving time where you are, which is likely not Washington, D.C. or New York City or these big gravitational Jupiters of the world, then there's still problems. So for instance, when I was producing the show from the U.S. Marianas, Saipan, half the year I'm getting up and doing the show. I wasn't there a full year, but I was doing the show from one time at 10 a.m. And then when the time zone switched in Eastern, of course, the radio time zones switched too, and bang, I've got to do it at 9 a.m. So it's kind of this problem that perpetuates itself. We've been doing this daylight saving time for close to a century now, a little over, and it's really not that great of an idea, but it kind of has to stop all around in order for it to be effective. The next question I would have is it fair, right, just, good, logical, and acceptable to just move your city, wherever it might be, to the time zone that you prefer? And I'm not so sure it is. So, for instance, I've pulled up the time and date here for Keene, New Hampshire, which is where the show's produced. I'm not currently there, but I can tell you, I'm when the sun's at the apogee by looking around. So the sun is at its apogee in Keene, New Hampshire on June the 21st, which I'm going to presume is the summer solstice, on standard time, not daylight time. So if we hadn't sprung forward, the sun's at its apogee at 11:51 a.m. So that what that means is that basically Eastern time is Eastern time when the sun's at its apogee at noon. And so presumably you're pretty close at 9 minutes. Moving New Hampshire, Keene, New Hampshire in this case, over to Atlantic time would make the sun at its apogee at 10:51 a.m. on the summer solstice. That doesn't make much sense. By the way, I did check the winter solstice. It was 3 or 4 minutes off from there. So still, Keene, New Hampshire appears to be pretty squarely in Eastern time. And just because people like the extra time in the afternoon, is that a good reason to say, let's do Atlantic time instead? I like it better. And I do like it better. And I'm sure lots of people like it better, and I get it. I have to say that certainly I'm on board with getting rid of the daylight saving time, but I'm not on board with switching over because it doesn't make much sense to me. And for me, the solutions are all about what you can do in your life. This is what I've always cared about. What can you do in your life to have more sunlight? Because that's what people seem to want. They want that sunlight in the evening. Well, here's the answer. Get up an hour earlier. Well, that sucks, doesn't it? But no, we are diurnal creatures. We evolved on the savannah without blackout shades and, opaque roofs and all these things. You didn't sleep till 11 o'clock in the morning when you're out there hunting and gathering. You just couldn't. So we're designed to get that sunlight in our eyes. From 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. is this supposedly special blue light sunlight that sets your circadian rhythm up correctly, and you need to be out exercising, or at least outside for a half an hour from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. And I think this is good advice, and I think we should all do that. And I try to every day. But you can empower yourself when it comes to time by getting up a bit earlier. And that's that's my solution for you. So I say get rid of daylight saving time. Everybody should. We should just be against this. But this notion of moving time zones, not so much. Now, I do have a radical theory that I'm willing to purport here because, this is the place for radical theories. Here's my radical theory. My radical theory is that we shouldn't have 24 time zones. Let's imagine for a second that we had, because I'm willing to be flexible. I could see noon being, my whole thing here is sort of the Randian noon is noon. But obviously, if you have a time zone, Keene, New Hampshire is 10 minutes off of noon. So, how far are you willing to be flexible? And I'd say that I could be flexible from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. That sounds fine, or 13 o'clock if you want to do it that way, military time, 1300. So I think that would be acceptable. What if we eliminated half of the time zones? Because time zones are a problem. Now, I know it doesn't affect everybody in their work, but the people that it does affect, it can be difficult. I'm currently in Central Time, and the show's being done in Eastern Time. And, of course, Eastern Time is sort of, this important time zone, like Greenwich Mean. And, there's time zones that are more important because more people are in them, and ones that are less important because there are fewer people in them. If you look at Mountain Time, for instance, it's only North America in it. There's no South America in Mountain Time. There may be some tiny little islands down there, but not much. So it's not as important as Eastern Time, which just runs from New York City down to Santiago and so many important cities in between. And if we were to bring them together. So I say merge Eastern and Central Time, merge Mountain and Pacific, merge all these times. And then we only have 12 time zones, so you only have to figure it out, half as often because Dallas and Washington, D.C. are on the same time zone. Well, that's obviously positive. And maybe this might be even more radical if you were willing to accept a wider swath, so say from 10:30 a.m. is noon to 1:30 p.m. or 13:30 is noon, then you could get rid of 2/3 of the time zones. So 24 is a lovely number that divides delightfully into so many numbers, and so instead of 12 time zones, you have 8. Now that would make things a lot easier to get by. So imagine a world with only 8 time zones and with just with no time changing. I think we'd all be able to get along better. Time would be far less confusing, and people would, they'd have to adjust. I mean, maybe some businesses out on towards the west would open a little later and close a little earlier. And close a little later, and ones would open to the eastern, perhaps. Maybe I've got that wrong switched. Would open a little earlier and close a little earlier. Maybe there would be some. Schools may have to do these sorts of things, but schools don't seem to have a problem with sending kids to school in the dark. And up north, people are driving home in the dark. This is my humble suggestion. Thanks for listening to Free Talk Live. You can check us out at freetalklive.com.
That is freetalklive.com, and you can chat with us in the meantime on our chat server at chat.freetalklive.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I